At exactly 3:20 a.m. on August 28, 2025, the Buyan-M, a sleek yet deadly Project 21,631, Buyan-M-class warship of Russia's Black Sea Fleet valued at nearly $80 million, rested silently at Military Pier No. 2 in Teryak Bay. The bay, a secluded inland stretch long regarded by Moscow as untouchable, lay over 65 miles from the Ukrainian front line, its placid waters reflecting the dim glow of scattered pier lights. Despite the calm, the vessel buzzed with activity, having just returned from a precise strategic 3M-14T Kalibr NK land attack cruise missile strike mission. The Buyan-M was now immersed in essential resupply operations, refueling. Hoses hissed as fuel gushed into the ship's tanks. Cooling systems activated with low hums and mechanical clicks from the Carton 7 thermal regulation module. Crew members moved methodically to reload the 83M-14T Kalibr NK missiles into the ship's 3S-14 vertical launch system, each valued at over $1 million and capable of striking virtually any Ukrainian city more than 900 miles away. On the deck, a group of officers had gathered, raising vodka glasses in quiet celebration of a mission successfully executed. The warm, pungent aroma of alcohol mingled with the briny scent of the sea. Around them, the combat crew rotated through rest shifts, some drifting into slumber at their stations, eyes half closed yet still half alert. Others leaned against railings, sipping coffee in near darkness. The soft clatter of tools, the distant moans of hydraulics from the LK-48 pressure manifold, and the occasional call of a watch officer created the rhythm of a ship alive but unsuspecting. None noticed that just over 6 miles away, a small vessel moved silently across the water. At a first glance, it seemed no more than an ordinary fishing boat, bobbing gently against the waves. Its wooden hull creaked softly as it glided across the moonlit water, leaving a faint trail in its wake. Yet inside the cockpit, 2 Ukrainian soldiers from the 73rd Naval Center were poised for action, wearing fishing jackets and Russian-style caps to blend seamlessly into the night. There, eyes scanned the waters, noting every shadow, every reflection, every subtle change. In the storage compartment below deck, where crates of squid and herring should have been, stacked 2 Beaver-heavy configuration FPV suicide drones lay hidden. These were no ordinary UAVs. They were designed for heavy configuration, armed with 8-pound armor-piercing warheads, night vision cameras, and fully autonomous internal navigation systems. Operating on the ARG-12 inertial navigation sequencer, entirely independent of GPS signals. In less than 5 minutes, this unassuming boat would become the launch pad for one of Ukraine's most daring and audacious naval attacks yet. The Buyan-M itself, a compact but lethal strike platform, dominated the narrow inland waters it patrolled, excelling where larger cruisers would be cumbersome. Unlike massive warships, equipped with helicopters and extensive air defense arrays, the Buyan-M thrived in confined spaces while retaining the power to strike targets deep within Ukraine. Every sortie from Terry port, often considered the cocoon of Russia's Azov fleet, cast a shadow of uncertainty over cities like Kiev, Lviv, and Odessa. The next target could be anything: a power grid, a fuel depot, or even a kindergarten. Ukraine, keenly aware of this constant threat, had decided to strike preemptively rather than wait for the next attack. The harbor itself was no ordinary dock. Tamriuk port was a floating fortress, bristling with layers of air defense. Panzer S-1 air defense systems, specialized in intercepting UAVs and cruise missiles, loomed over the water like silent sentinels, while 2 Podlet K-1 low-altitude radar stations operated continuously, their electronic eyes sweeping the surrounding waters 24 hours a day. Any unknown object entering the zone would be detected and engaged almost immediately. Russia's Navy considered Teryak Bay untouchable, a steel cocoon where drones could not penetrate. Yet this assumption would prove fatal. Ukraine had meticulously calculated the timing, chosen the method, and rehearsed every movement down to the second, exploiting gaps in the enemy's perception. The small boat crept forward, skimming the sea surface in the radar's blind zone, moving through a narrow corridor, invisible to even the most sensitive detection systems. From this overlooked gap, death approached silently in the form of UAVs costing less than 1/500th of a single Kalibr missile. At 3 miles from the target, on the very edge of Terek Port's surveillance perimeter, the soldiers prepared their payload. Gray tarps were removed, revealing the 2 FPV drones, roughly 4 feet long with wingspans of 5.5 feet, fiberglass composite bodies. Ultralight yet resilient, painted matte gray to blend seamlessly with the water. Every detail had been accounted for, from aerodynamic stability to thermal signature reduction. The soldiers activated the drones, pulling safety pins and engaging the internal navigation modules powered by the ARG-12 Inertial unit. Both UAVs were released simultaneously, following independent vectors toward critical targets. The first, under the primary team's control, was programmed to disable the ship's main radar tower, the positive ME 1.23D surveillance radar, blinding it temporarily. The second, guided by HUR Special Operations Forces, approached at a calculated 30-degree angle, targeting the 3 S-14 vertical launch system amidships. If the first strike succeeded, the second would penetrate the final defenses to strike at the warship's command heart, where fire control, systems and missile stores converged. Tension hung thick in the night air, each second stretching interminably as the tiny drones bore down on one of Russia's most powerful strike platforms. The first UAV slid silently off the boat's stern launch rail. In seconds, its high-speed electric propeller whirred to life, and it skimmed just above the water, accelerating toward the warship. Moments later, the second drone followed, flying mere feet apart at an altitude low enough to slip beneath the podlet and Panzer radar sweeps. With the drones airborne, the boat had completed its mission. What followed now rested entirely in the hands of these unmanned machines, guided by inertial sensors, internal navigation, algorithms, and infrared cameras. In a control bunker near Zaporia, a UAV operator stared at a black and white FPV screen, his face illuminated by the monitor's dim glow. Silence hung in the room, punctuated only by the soft hum of equipment. The radar tower appeared on the screen, a near-perfect target. The operator's grip tightened on the control stick as the drone closed in, heart racing with anticipation. The Russian vessel remained unaware. Its positive ME 1.2 radar rotated faithfully, blind to the incoming threat. The countdown ticked down, and then, in an instant, a brilliant flash erupted. Atop the radar mast, a white plume tore across the deck, followed by flames spouting on both sides like molten metal, while shrapnel scattered into the sea like fireworks. Seconds later, the Buyan-M surveillance and navigation systems simultaneously failed. The main antenna was ripped from its shaft, flung violently across the deck. Sparks shot from the SVR-92 auxiliary signal processor into nearby equipment. Heat from the blast scorched auxiliary sensors, while the 5P-1002 Combat Information Center node, despite its EMI shielding, was destroyed. The once powerful strike vessel now experienced temporary tactical blindness. The commander barked orders to run a fast diagnostic, suspecting an electronic warfare attack, but the ship's responses were futile. The main radar was gone. The Buyan-M now relied solely on the Panzer S-1 close-in defense system, which had an engagement range of 2.5 to 3.5 miles, but it required manual activation. Unfortunately, the control center had been decimated, and rising cabin temperatures rendered manual engagement impossible. A shard of antenna had pierced the command tower's observation window, striking a radar. Officer and chaos erupted across the deck as crew scrambled in confusion. Yet the danger was far from over. A small gray object, barely noticeable, skimmed across the port side, heading directly for the 3 S-14 vertical launch module amidships. It was Ukraine's second drone, known as Retribution. set to strike the vertical launch system that housed all 8-3 M14T Kalibr NK missiles. Inside the auxiliary control room, alarms blared from the GRES-9 emergency annunciation. Panelist officers shouted warnings, but it was already too late. With radar down, optical sensors obscured by smoke and dust, and the Panzer system offline, the warship was utterly exposed. The FPV feed revealed every detail. Rectangular hatches painted matte green protruding like chimneys, heat signatures visible through at least 2 launch covers. One hatch, bay number 3, was open, exposing a missile already in pre-launch mode. This precise target had been programmed into the drone's navigation system. Approaching at a calculated angle from the port side, the drone struck with pinpoint accuracy, smashing into Launch Bay 3. A violent explosion erupted, sending a thick column of black smoke skyward, tearing apart the center deck. Steel plating warped and metal fragments scattered like deadly confetti. Immediately, the ship's internal fire suppression system activated, spraying bursts of carbon dioxide from the MSU-3CO2 dispersal generator across the deck in a desperate attempt to quench the flames and reduce heat. Despite the suppression system's efforts, it was too late. Flames spread into the secondary electrical bay, incinerating the RKV-4 launch control processor, while the 2 adjacent launch bays overheated rapidly. The threat of a secondary explosion loomed, and the ship's combat capability was entirely compromised. Following the blast, the Buyan-M began tilting slightly to starboard, a clear sign of internal imbalance or flooding in a technical compartment. Crew members rushed across the deck, sealing emergency valves and switching the defense systems to manual mode. The vessel remained afloat, but all offensive and defensive functions were effectively disabled. Across the Black Sea Fleet's internal UHF channel, messages flew. A warship had been attacked, its positive ME 1.2 radar destroyed, and the 3 S-14 launch system damaged. Support was requested, along with a towback to Terry. Within minutes, the Buyan-M had been removed. From active duty, its mission abruptly halted. This vessel had long been Russia's principal strike platform in the Sea of Azov, operating efficiently in semi-enclosed shallow waters and narrow channels where only small-class ships could maneuver and evade detection. Now, one of these key assets had been neutralized. Hours later, Ukraine's Defense Intelligence Directorate released UAV footage confirming the strike. The radar mast obliterated, followed seconds later by the drone hitting the center deck. Flames erupted, and the ship visibly tilted. No air defense countermeasures were observed, and independent verification confirmed the video's authenticity. Naval analysts noted that this FPV drone attack not only caused material damage, but also created immediate strategic consequences across the Sea of Azov. The Buyan-M was forced to return to its base for assessment and repairs, which were expected to take weeks depending on the extent of damage and the recoverability of its digital systems. For Ukraine, the operation was a tactical triumph, accomplished at less than 1% of the target's value, yet with a ripple effect capable of shifting the balance of power for days or weeks. Russia's navy lost confidence in the once-assumed security of the Azov interior. The calm rear area, previously considered safe for docking, reloading, and preparing Kalibr strikes, had been exposed as vulnerable. 2 FPV drones launched from a disguised speedboat had penetrated a multi-million-dollar air defense system and struck the warship's 2 most critical points: its positive ME 1.2 radar and its 3 S-14 missile launcher. This was not the first time Russian ships had faced improvised UAV attacks. Earlier, Ukrainian forces had disabled patrol boats and landing ships using small drones. More recently, a sea-launched FPV drone struck an offshore oil rig used as a radar outpost. Actions analysts described as pivotal moments in modern asymmetric warfare. These were no longer desperate or last-resort attacks. They were carefully planned, rehearsed, and executed operations using low-cost, precise, and coordinated UAVs to exploit blind spots and strike critical targets at the perfect moment. It wasn't the power of a single drone, but the intelligence, timing, and unconventional strategy that had transformed these UAVs into a persistent strategic nightmare for the Russian Navy. Going forward, any Russian vessel in the region, whether a Buyan-M, a Cherna-class, or a logistics ship, would face an omnipresent threat from drones costing less than $2,000 each. The Sea of Azov, once seen as a secure operational theater, had become a landscape of uncertainty where even the most heavily armed small-class warship could no longer assume safety.